I'm entitled to alimony, Jack, he declared before storming out of the hospital room. I tried to protest, calling after him, but my pleas fell on deaf ears as he exited without a second glance. That marked the moment when I found myself navigating the challenges of being a single person battling cancer. Strangely, the knot in my chest seemed to loosen, hinting that perhaps my feelings for Jack had already chilled. As I grappled with my newfound single status, I couldn't shake the thought that Jack, who had callously toyed with me and consistently prioritized his own needs, deserved some form of divine retribution. These ruminations fueled my determination to plot a revenge of sorts. My name is Emma, a woman in her 50s, previously a housewife in what turned out to be a tumultuous marriage with Jack. We had no children, and despite my initial belief that we supported each other, a growing chasm separated us. My ideal vision of marriage involved mutual support and weathering challenges together, but with Jack, there was only a void. "Where's the food?" "I'm in a hurry," Jack barked, interrupting my thoughts as I returned from an errand. His lack of consideration was nothing new. Jack, a typical office worker with days off, only used them for his own leisure. In our 3 decades of marriage, he never once helped with housework, dismissing it as solely a housewife's responsibility. Even during my moments of illness, Jack showed no compassion. There were instances when I struggled to get out of bed due to a cold, yet Jack demanded his meals without a hint of concern. He never made an effort to take care of me when I was unwell. Instead, he'd declare, "I have plans with friends. Leave the house alone," before indulging in late-night drinking sessions and returning home inebriated. Our understanding of marriage differed drastically. While I tried tirelessly to bridge the gap in our early years, Jack remained unyielding, refusing to acknowledge any fault and dismissing my concerns with a harsh, "Don't complain. You're just a housewife." My affection for Jack had long faded. It wasn't that I sought dependence on him. I, too, am a human with challenging days. I simply hoped for support during those difficult times. Yet Jack never exhibited any empathy. Once I recognized this lack of compassion, the rift between us widened steadily. Confronting Jack seemed futile, and with each passing day, the prospect of facing him filled me with dread. Our marriage had turned cold, and I knew continuing it held no merit. Amidst this strained relationship, an unusual change occurred in my body. While I had always been prone to falling ill, this time, I sensed something was amiss. Contacting my father, who was at our ancestral home, he rushed me to the hospital. The diagnosis was cancer, fortunately detected early with a chance of recovery. Eager to commence treatment, I requested my father to bring essentials from home and swiftly completed the admission process. Jack was at work, so I informed him briefly through a message about my cancer diagnosis and hospital admission. As the reality of a challenging treatment and a potentially painful battle loomed, anxiety about the uncertain future gripped me. Oddly, Jack was the person who came to mind during these moments of vulnerability. Despite my belief that love for Jack had vanished, a subtle desire to face him and spend time as a married couple lingered deep within. In my weakened state, even someone as seemingly indifferent as Jack might express concern. I yearned for a simple inquiry, "And are you okay?" or a few kind words. Just one visit from him would have sufficed. I yearned to catch a glimpse of Jack's face, even if just once. I couldn't help but wonder if he struggled with the day-to-day challenges in my absence. Guilt nagged at me for not being able to fulfill my household duties. However, despite the days of waiting, Jack never made an appearance. My messages, marked as read, remained unanswered. No simple reply like "okay" or even a brief "Are you okay?" reached me. It felt as though he harbored no concern for me, oblivious to my battle with cancer and my weakened state. The harsh reality of Jack's apparent indifference weighed heavily on my mind, causing unbearable pain. I recognized the foolishness in my expectations. Was it so wrong to desire a bit of care from my husband during my struggles? I questioned where it all went wrong. My intention was never to burden Jack. I simply longed for his concern, even if just a little. Yet that small selfish desire remained unfulfilled. With a resolute decision to cease expecting anything from Jack, I fiercely confronted my battle with cancer. The expected agony of the fight was relentless. Medications administered to me undoubtedly broke down my body, and countless sleepless nights were spent in pain. At times, I contemplated abandoning the treatment, allowing my deteriorating body to continue its decline and facing the inevitable end. However, my parents' reassurances that it would get better kept me going. Even when my will faltered, their encouraging words propelled me forward, bringing me to today. One day, as I lay feeling unwell and staring blankly at the ceiling, the door to my room swung open unexpectedly. Not anticipating my parents' visit that day, I wondered who it could be. Turning my gaze, I was surprised to find Jack standing there. Had he finally come to check on me out of concern, witnessing my emaciated and drained state? As I lay there, Jack's unexpected presence left me speechless, and a flood of thoughts raced through my mind. I couldn't help but wonder if my deteriorating state would only fuel his disdain for me. Jack, seemingly oblivious to my internal turmoil, casually took a seat beside my bed. He observed me in silence before breaking it with a laugh. "So cancer does this to you, huh? You look terrible, hardly like a woman at all." His words sent a chilling shiver down my spine. In the midst of battling cancer, those were the last words I needed to hear. I wished he would just stay quiet, but Jack, disregarding my feelings, continued with even more hurtful remarks. "Ever since you've been gone, every day has been wonderful. Sure, the house is a mess, but I hardly ever go home. Life without you is surprisingly easy." Jack's cruel words further wounded me. Why did I have to endure such heartless comments? Why couldn't he offer a single comforting word? Feeling the urge to lash out at Jack, my weakened body betrayed me, leaving me with no choice but to quietly absorb his painful remarks. I stared at him with vacant eyes, and in response, Jack chuckled mockingly. Then he uttered something utterly unbelievable. "By the way, I've already filed for divorce. I'm taking the house as property division. You don't get a say in it." His words made the room spin. He had filed for divorce without my consent. Before I could even process this shock, Jack continued callously. "I've fallen in love with someone else. She's 20 years younger than me." Jack's words hit me like a sudden wave, leaving me to grapple with the realization that he was serious about someone else. As I processed this revelation, the unsettling thought of an affair raced through my mind. Jack, seemingly satisfied with delivering his bombshell, began to prepare to leave, paying no heed to my plea for him to wait. It became evident that the love I once held in Jack's heart had faded, and the pain in my chest intensified. The intensity of the emotional turmoil reached a point where I simply didn't care anymore. With a resigned acceptance, I uttered a single sentence, giving Jack the permission to leave. He left the room with a satisfied smile, leaving me to confront the harsh reality of a shattered marriage. In the aftermath, I resolved to fight even harder against my illness. Despite the excruciating pain, I was determined to fully recover from cancer, dedicating myself even more fervently to the treatment. 2 days passed, a seemingly short span but felt interminable for someone grappling with sleepless nights and uncertainty. Amidst the torment, doubts crept in. Did Jack truly finalize the divorce? Or were his words merely meant to play on my anxieties? A secret plan emerged in my mind, a plan to expose Jack completely. I believed that once he discovered my scheme, even someone as cold-blooded as Jack would be shaken. True to my expectations, Jack called me. Unable to take the call in my hospital room, I ignored the persistent attempts. The constant vibrations became annoying, prompting me to text him to stop calling. The call ceased, but then a barrage of messages followed. Desperate pleas filled with promises to apologize for everything flooded my phone. Each message seemed a transparent attempt at self-preservation on Jack's part. Perhaps Jack had started to comprehend why I had readily accepted the unilateral divorce. In response to his request to visit, I initially remained silent. Growing impatient, Jack sent another message, and reluctantly I replied with a resigned "fine." Despite the exhaustion from my ongoing battle with illness, The prospect of declining and enduring incessant calls from Jack prompted me to agree. As Jack entered my hospital room, his voice revealed panic, a clear indication that he was already feeling cornered. Though to an outsider, Jack's reaction might have seemed excessive. I knew it was only natural for him to be frantic. After all, I had a secret ace up my sleeve. Eagerly anticipating Jack's arrival, I was determined to bring him down. With an outburst, he demanded an explanation for my actions. Without hesitation, Jack placed my bank book on the table, shocked to find over $1 billion saved up. "What the hell are you thinking with that outburst?" he exclaimed. "I had no idea you had assets worth $6 million. If I knew about this money, I wouldn't have." "Well, you never asked," I interrupted. "Who would imagine that a housewife like me would have this kind of money? If I had known about this money, I would have never divorced you." Jack, who unilaterally divorced me without my consent, was now complaining that he would have acted differently if he had known about my substantial financial assets. It was self-centered of Jack to assert that he would have changed his decision based on money. Frustrated, Jack questioned the source of the money, and I decided it was time to reveal the secret. Actually, the source of this $6 million was from investments, I explained. "I started about 5 years ago, suggested by my parents. Although your salary was enough for us to live comfortably, I'd always wanted to contribute something. Under my father's guidance, I've become proficient in investing. The $6 million you see is the profit earned over those 5 years." As Jack processed this revelation, I added, "I was going to tell you eventually, but then cancer hit me and you suddenly started to claim divorce. What could have been done? I never intended to take this secret to the grave. My plan was to confess to Jack about the $6 million once I recovered from cancer, with the intention of sharing the money to ensure our life together as a couple. However, before I could act on this plan, Jack unilaterally decided to divorce. Given the circumstances, all $6 million would likely be mine." As I recounted my story, Jack's face turned red with rage. He demanded alimony and compensation for the perceived sin of keeping secrets. Faced with the vast sum of money, Jack seemed overwhelmed and made outrageous demands. Despite my resolve, Jack insisted on getting his hands on the $6 million. In the midst of the heated argument, Jack's shouting became unbearable. It became evident that reasoning with him was futile. Swiftly, I decided to put an end to the ordeal. "You were the one who went ahead and divorced, right?" I reminded him. "You forced me to divorce, remember? I always knew you were cruel, but I never imagined you'd go this far." Raising my voice in anger, I expressed my disbelief at Jack's selfish actions. I recounted how, during my cancer diagnosis, I had hoped he would show concern, but instead, he filed for divorce and claimed our house. Now that he knew about my wealth, he came and blamed me. "I never intended to keep it a secret forever. I was waiting for the right time to tell you. You destroyed that chance," I declared. This outburst was unlike anything I had expressed before. I had always accepted Jack's selfish actions, thinking that we were a married couple who should stay together without complaints. But now, I felt no love for Jack, only uncontrollable anger and disbelief. As Jack continued to blame and belittle me, I realized that discussing anything further was futile. I begged him to stop, pointing out that he was the one who initiated the divorce. My anger toward him overshadowed the pain from cancer, and I couldn't help but question how he had become so selfish. As Jack's mistress discovered my financial assets, Jack, in desperation, knelt down, pleading for the $6 million. The once desperate plea from a man I had loved now felt ridiculous and disappointing. I called the nurse, asking them to remove Jack from my room. Despite Jack's frequent attempts to visit the hospital afterward, he was never allowed to enter my room. Ultimately, I bravely fought against cancer, and with my recent declaration of complete healing, I was discharged from the hospital. Now, I am using a portion of the $6 million to lead a relaxed life. At 50, I have had enough of marriage and plan to live the rest of my life alone, feeling content and free from anyone's expectations.